convene an open session here, select board meeting, July 21st, 2020 for 7 p.m. I'd like to call the meeting to order for 7:22 p.m. I just want to go through a couple of quick things just for the general public's convenience is that just want to read the public meeting remote participation guidelines. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 governor's order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, General Law, Chapter 30, Section 18, the governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place. The various boards and committees representing the town of Grafton will conduct their public meetings and hearings via remote participation. No in-person attendance members of the public will be permitted. We will be conducting this meeting through Zoom meeting. For members of the public, we will be using the question answer session, and we will have Ms. DeFazio, our vice chair, who will be managing that only throughout components within the agenda. In addition to that, I just want to remind people and participants who are here today that we are using remote participation in that if you're sharing your screens at any given time, that is available and open to the whole public to view at any given time. I, as the chair, will call upon people if you please mute yourself during conversations. And if you need to be identified, please unmute yourself, either call out my name or raise your hand and I will acknowledge you. Going forward, I would like to just take a roll call vote of select board members who are present. I'm going to go down the list here. Ed Prisby.
Prisby, aye.
Matt Often.
Matt Often's present.
Colleen Roy.
Colleen Roy, present.
Doreen DeFazio.
Fazio, present.
Peter Carlson, present. Staff members, panelists today, I call your name. Could you please affirm that you are present? I have Tim McInerney.
McInerney here.
Becca Meekins.
Here.
Paul Canoyer. Doesn't look like he's on quite yet. Okay. Okay. So want to welcome everybody to the meeting. I have a couple of quick announcements to get to. First and foremost, on behalf of the select board and the town of Grafton, we would just like to thank the Grafton High School class of 2020 on a successful commencement Saturday that was held at the Grafton High Athletic Field. It was an event that was televised and live streamed. It was great to see the students, and on behalf of the entire board in Grafton, we wish all the students well in their endeavors, and we wish them all the luck and health and safety. Real quick, we just have a couple more announcements here. Is that a reclaim event is planned for August 8th from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the Municipal Center parking lot. Due to COVID, this event will be a little different than the past. Please watch the town website for details at www.grafton-ma.gov. The Grafton Public Library has started contactless curbside pickup. For more information, please visit the library website, graftonlibrary.org, or call at 508-839-4649 between the hours of 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. In addition to that, we just want to remind some residents of road construction that continues to be ongoing. Route 30 from Route 140 to the town line, Adams Road and Christopher Drive. Just a reminder that construction crews will begin work at 7 a.m. and end around 3 p.m. Due to the high volume of traffic in the area, delays are to be expected. Police details will be on site and detours will be set up. Every effort will be made to keep traffic moving as smoothly as possible during construction. That's all I have for announcements. And I don't believe we have any public comments at this time. We don't have any resignations and there's no appointments tonight, and we are going to go right into new business. So first up on our agenda this evening is vote to allow chair to sign contract with 4Leaf for fire prevention and administrative services. Want to give an update on to what these services are for, either Mr. McInerney or Ms. Meekins.
A lot of this happened while I was away last week. We had one intention relative to this interviews we did for fire inspection services, and it turned out to meet another need because other things had developed relative to Mr. Cheris's resignation being rescinded. So I'm going to let Becca handle the detail of this particular item on the agenda.
Thank you, Tim. Yeah, so like Tim mentioned, this search for a contractor to fill what we thought was going to be a gap left by Steve Chess in the fire department for inspection services. We had reached out to Four Leaf. They are a company that provides inspection services to municipalities. Obviously, we received news that Steve has rescinded his retirement, which we're very happy about. So we will not need to pursue the inspection services piece that Four Leaf offers. However, last week I had a couple of lengthy discussions with both Steve Chess and the chief. And one of the services that Four Leaf does provide is what's called Fire Prevention Administrator Services. So that's basically an administrative person who can be brought on to assist the fire department in any way through discussions with the chief and Steve. We're currently trying to make a transition to online permitting with Viewpoint. The fire department piece of the permitting system is pretty lofty. The fire department covers a number of different inspections, and the state requires a number of different forms be provided to the state. The way that Viewpoint works is that each individual municipality has to build from scratch the forms that are needed for their specific needs. Given that the fire department has in excess of 30 different forms, that is a time, that's just a time allotment that the fire department doesn't have right now and can't designate to building those forms. So through discussions with the chief, Steve Cheris and Bob in the building department, who's sort of overseeing the transition to Viewpoint, they thought it might be a good idea to bring on this fire prevention administrator to assist in that transition, to help build those forms, maybe do some training with the administration up in the fire department, and possibly help with scheduling as we do the transition. So I don't anticipate this being a long-term contract. I'm thinking maybe 2 weeks to get the forms built and up and running. And then depending on the training aspect and the transition, it may go longer. But I think that given that all the departments are moving to Viewpoint, this would be a good asset for the fire department to bring them along with the rest of the departments. So tonight we're recommending that the board sign a contract for fire prevention administrator services.
Is there any questions from the board about what this contract is for? Ms. Roy?
Becca, you mentioned that you spoke to the chief and Steve about this. Were they in favor of signing this contract?
Yeah, so actually we met the person that Four Leaf is going to provide to the town to assist us on last Thursday morning. And Steve Chest was there along with Cheryl Barker, who's the admin assistant in the fire department. So they got the opportunity to actually meet this person, talk to them about their experience, their qualifications. They were on board with bringing her on. And then on Thursday evening, I had another discussion with the chief and Steve, and they both were in support of bringing on this person, at least in the interim for the transition.
Thank you. Mr. Fazio?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, through you, I just wanted to say thank you for, pivoting this four-leaf service from what we needed a week ago to this administrative service communicating with the fire staff. And it seems that once the training is done and everything is maintained, that it'll probably end up being a time saver for staff, because everything or most documents will then be electronic instead of people coming in and having to fill things out. So I think it's great, and just wanted to say thank you.
Anybody have anything else? Yeah, Mr. Fazio, I agree with you. I think this is a great asset to assist with the department, especially with the daunting task of moving to an electronic permitting system and getting all of the information in there that Becca had disclosed. So I'm really happy as well to see them getting the assistance they need for this and getting this in sooner rather than later, so we can at least implement some more contactless services within the town of Grafton. I think given the situation with COVID-19, this is just part of the, the smaller piece, but part of the bigger, objective that we have in limiting physical contact with people during this time. Granted, this isn't to replace the human conversation piece of it, but I'm really happy to see that this contract can be utilized in the capacity for helping getting the permitting software up and running for the department. Does anyone have anything else that they want to add before we have a motion? No? Okay, I'll entertain a motion if the board wants to allow the chair to sign the contract.
I move the board vote to allow the chairman to sign the contract with 4Leaf for fire prevention and administrative services.
Second.
I have a motion made in second. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor by roll call vote. Mr. Frisbee?
Aye.
Mr. Often?
Often aye.
Ms. Roy?
Roy, I.
Mr. Fazio?
Fazio, aye.
Mr. Carlson is aye. Declare the motion carried 5-0. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. If we can just get some periodic updates on that, Becca, as the development of that would be great. I think the public would be really excited to hear how this is progressing.
Sure, I anticipate this person probably starting the first week in August, I believe is what we have discussed.
Perfect. Okay. All right. Thank you. Moving on to the next part of our agenda, vote to execute easements at 38 and 40 Adams Road. Mr. McInerney, do you want to just give us some guidance as to how we got here with this tonight?
Yeah, we have to kind of go back probably 1.5 boards, different membership and so forth. So Becca can share a screen and put the easement up. Paul's here as well, or should be here for any logistical or timing considerations relative to these easements. So there are 3 easements to be signed. One is a temporary easement for 38 Adams Road. Another is a permanent for ongoing maintenance for that easement. And another is a permanent easement at 40 Adams Road. So back in 2000, the town purchased land known as Hennessy 1. It was about 125 acres. So we're going back 20 years. 44 Adams Road was one of those lots. The town decided to hold off about 25 acres to sell it off to make the payment for the purchase and hold the rest of the land in conservation, if you will. So it was a well thought out process. I remember looking at documents when I first got here that they were doing this in the 80s, 87, 88, 89, and they finally got it executed in 2000. In 2005, the planning board placed the affordable restriction on the lot known as 44. And we've had a number of discussions on previous boards just to bring Matt and Colleen up to speed. The drainage problem that was on Adams Road, a lot of water comes off of Knowlton Farm. We tied in some pipes. We had some analysis done about water, concentrating on parcels. We did research on Board of Health plans that were stamped and certified for both wells and for septic systems. There were grass swales laid out to handle the water from the road at the time those houses were built. At some point during 20 years, those grass swales were never easement to us, but they were filled in, not filled in. We don't know really the history of it, but you can look at some old historic Google photographs and see that the landscape changed quite a bit. So anyways, the long and short of it is we went to town meeting. We asked for permission for the board to enter into negotiation and or take an easement at 44 to be able to put a pipe that's, I think it's 800 feet, but Paul's going to have to clarify the length of that pipe. We do have that map portion we can put up. We had to go through an easement process that had an appraisal that came back for $9,900. That's the cost of the easement if we were to take it by eminent domain. We were working on a dual track relative to a taking or making a deal with the landowner. So Mr. Kelly, our attorney, and his attorney have been going back for quite some time to get this done. Obviously, the homeowners want the water off of their property, and we're trying to find a way to make that happen. So the way to make that happen is to put a bigger pipe down Adams Road to number 44. And if you're going towards the Mass Pike, you would take a right and you would put that pipe right along that property line at 44. And we're looking to have an easement for all 3 of those easements, just for 44 and for 38. The logistic here is that was designated, like I said, in 2005 to be an affordable lot. Well, the person who owns the land, Mr. Kelly, is agreeable to give us the easement in exchange for removing the restriction, which is the next part of the agenda, for the affordable requirement for that parcel. So it's been over 20 years, right? And nothing's been developed there. There are houses that sell in that area for the $700,000 number. I don't think he will build an affordable unit there. So it's kind of a business decision. And the board at the time, wanted us to go down a dual track to either take it or come to an agreement. So we've come to an agreement. If we can remove the restriction, he'll give us the easement. We will not have to pay him any money. The risk is if we did just move forward with the taking and paying the money, he can sue us at a later time of a jury, with the jury of his peers that can determine the value differently than we've determined it. We did use a very good appraiser and Joel Boothray. So I think we'd be very, very good in court relative to the cost of the easement and the taking, but you always run the risk, and there will be a cost, obviously, to litigate it. So our recommendation is to stay with the two-track approach, but going to release the affordable restriction for 44 and signing the easements as stated. So I don't know if Paul wants to add in some logistics there, but we'll end up removing all of the water that's impacting the two property owners. I guess it's west of, I guess that would be north. No, it would be south of the Mass Pike on Adams Road by putting this pipe in and piping down. We did go to conservation. They did approve this, the plan we had designed by BHB. And that's really the long and short of it. Becca, did I miss anything?
No, I don't know if Paul has anything to add though.
I don't see him in here, but if he is here, if we could make him a participant, that'd be great.
Can you
He's
hear
here
me?
right now. Yep. We can hear you, Paul.
Thanks, Peter. So, the whole project, I couldn't get in at first. I'm a little late. So it's about 900 feet of pipe. 800 is 24-inch PVC. 85 is reinforced concrete, give or take. We have 5 manholes. Like Tim said, it's been going, the residents of the road not even impacted by the water, but just waiting for the road to be repaved. It's been a 2-year ordeal. So I think, and this gets the water off of other residents' properties forever, puts it on our own property, which is the goal. Because even if we leave it where it is now and these residents sell, we're going to be back in the same spot in a couple years. So this takes it from our property, transfers it over somebody else's property underground instead of overland where it goes right now, puts it back on town property, same volume of water that was always going there. So conservation had no issue with it. And it's done. We're done with that. We can pave that road before school starts, be off there, close out this project, which has just been hanging here for 3 or 4 years from design to now. So it'd be nice to get it all closed out. So I would recommend we, accept the easement and remove that parcel, because as Tim said, he's indicated to us that he has no intention of developing it as an affordable lot. Chances are he won't make any money just with the size house he needs to build to be compatible with the neighborhood. So that's it, unless you have something for me.
Thanks, Mr. Keller. Does anyone of the board members have any questions? Mr. Rothman.
Yeah, so 3 to Tim. So it's just this one lot that's got an affordable restriction on it. And the guy who owns it is basically just saying he has no intention of developing anything on that. And it's the town's impression, I guess, that he wouldn't build something on it, once the restriction's removed.
I fully expect that if he can build a market 4-bedroom home, he will do so.
Okay.
But it will not be affordable if you remove the restriction.
Mr. Prisby.
How did the restriction come to be?
I'm sorry, can you ask that one more time?
Yeah, how did the restriction come to be? Usually when someone gets an affordable restriction on a lot, it's because they bought it pursuant to some sort of purchase arrangement where you're going to get the lot at a discount price for the affordable restriction. That's how lots typically end up in the SHI, but I'm wondering how this one came to be.
Yeah, back in 2005, the planning board placed that affordable restriction on it when it did its A&R for the lots that they built and sold off to pay for the land purchase.
Okay, so, he's getting a benefit here of taking something that should be sold at an affordable rate, and in which it would be hard for him to make any money off of it, to now he's going to get something that he can build at market rate. So basically, in exchange for this easement, he's getting, a couple $100,000 or something, whatever the margin is, right? That's what it is.
Yeah. I mean, it's you keep it restricted. We do the taking. We run the risk of court and that cost. And did we ever really build it if it stays affordable? And this is all based on discussions we had. Ed, you were on the board at the time, so that's why the dual track was important, to see what the cost would be if we had to do the taking versus what the value of having that one affordable lot in that whole subdivision means. So I guess that's the essence of the public policy question that you guys have to decide on tonight.
Thank you. Anyone else have any other questions? Mr. Fazio.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Paul. I just wanted to know if there's any foreseen negative impact on the town property or the roadway from the water.
Should be no negative impact to the town property. You can say the water's getting there now. It's just going overland through really 3 private pieces of property to get to the outback where our conservation land already is. So there's no same volume of water coming from the same sources. It's just going to be underground now through a pipe, so taking a different route than it would have in the past. So, and as far as the roadway goes, the drainage is in there now. When the issue came up a couple years ago, we capped the inlets, so they're still there, but they're capped, so they're being unused. So we really, in the top coat of that pavement has never been put down. So it's still just the binder course, which doesn't last very long. So it's we're gonna eventually that road's gonna wear out twice as fast as it would have if we get the top coat down. So it's imperative that we get that down because it's been a few winters already. If that answers what you.
It does. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Anyone else have any other questions? All right, I'm not hearing anything, so we need a motion to be read to vote to execute the easements at 38 or 40 Adams Road.
Before I read the motion, did you want me to read the commentary from last week concerning this?
Thank you, Ms. Roy. Yes, for those who weren't aware, we received in the Q&A sessions a member of the public who would like to speak to this, and we're going to read those comments into the record for this part of the agenda. Thank you. Please go ahead.
So Ethel Herrick wrote in, Adams Road redevelopment project. My neighbor signed a lease and indemnification agreement with Lot 36, William J. Peel, Rebecca S. Peel, on last month 6/11/20, which is only active for a period of 30 days from commencing on the date set forth by both parties. The pipe is on their property and the water filtrates empties out on mine, creating major flooding. I would like to know why the town sent me a temporary easement agreement yesterday for me to grant the town rights for an easement for a 3-year term, when it should only take the town a week to complete the work to reroute the drainage infiltration pipe that was installed back in August 2018, which creates flooding on my lot and lot number 32. I have no interest to grant a temporary easement to the town on my property. She continues with, I would like to know why the town sent me a temporary easement yesterday for me to grant the town rights for an easement for a 3-year term when it should only take the town a week to complete the work to reroute the drainage infiltration pipe that was installed back in August 2018, which creates flooding on my lot and lot number 32. I have no interest to grant a temporary easement to the town on my property, especially for 3 years. She continues with, on May 12th, 2020, I received an email from Paul Knoyer on which included a draft limited license and mutual indemnification agreement from the town, along with a site plan issued for a client review date, October 18th, 2019. My husband and I signed a limited license and mutual indemnification agreement on May 19th, 2020, and emailed the town of Grafton attention Paul Knoyer and Tim McInerney. We submitted the modified license agreement at the request of the town, and they never followed up again until I inquired yesterday and spoke with Rebecca Meekins. Now it seems they are changing it. She continues, our legal counsel will be returning from vacation on July 20th. I would like to request a copy of the revised project plan as soon as it is updated based on the town's agreement with Brian Kelly, lot number 38, for review. The project plan should be attached as an addendum to any contract we sign. This is Ethel Jaggy, 34 Adams Road. Thank you. I have a few questions. Justin Wood also wrote thank you all, and then she wrote thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Colin. All right. Unless the board doesn't have any more questions, we want to entertain a motion to execute the easement for 38 and 40 Adams Road.
Sure, I'd be interested in the answers to some of those questions.
Okay. Do you know which one specifically that you want answers to?
Just all of them.
All right. Mr. McInerney, are you prepared to answer those questions from Ethel Jaggy?
Yeah, I think things were updated even since she may have sent that last time. So Becca and Paul were working on this along with legal counsel. The 3-year window. Well, Paul, you know what? Why don't you just tell us what the 3-year window is to deal with relative to the maintenance of whatever the outfall is from that water that's will not be going on our property as a result of moving this pipe to the north, south.
Well, in order for us to remove it, the majority of the structure is on lot 36, the Peel property. And on his, to answer the question that she mentioned about the Peels, there's no date on his because when I spoke with Bill Peel, we left the date open because we didn't know when this was going to take place, when all the back and forth between Ginny and Kelly's attorney, when all this would be ironed out so we could move to this point. So there were no dates and the Peels were agreeable to that point. As far as the time frame for the easements, to loom, seed, get grass to grow, if it doesn't take this in the fall, you have to go back and redo it. If it doesn't take in the spring, somebody has to maintain it. So that's the time frame. It doesn't have to be that long. It can be however long we decide it needs to be in the end. As far as the agreement that we sent her back in May and not speaking to her since, it was like, we don't know when, it was in the email. When it gets signed and everything's documented on our side, we'll get it back to her because we didn't know when this meeting was going to take place or when everything was going to be ironed out for us to move forward with this plan. So that's where it stands. It's but that's still sitting out there. We don't need the easement from her or Bill Peel to get this part of the project done. This gets us off the road, and then we can remove the structure, the existing thing at any time once the logistics with her are worked out. As far as the change of the document from the original one in May, the one she got last week, on that part I'm not sure. And Becca was talking more with Ginny than I was on that end. So.
I can add a couple of things. So I had a couple of phone conversations with Ethel last week after the meeting. She did receive a set of the revised final plans from VHB, so she does have those. I know her attorney has been away, and she, has some hesitation with respect to signing the temporary easement. That was a recommendation from our council to move forward with a temporary easement rather than just an agreement. But I expressed to her that, if the attorneys could work it out, whatever was agreeable in terms of a time frame were agreeable too. I mean, like Paul said, the reason for the temporary easement is to remove the existing drainage that will no longer be needed and then do some final landscaping on her property to clean it up a little bit. So there's no sense of immediate need with respect to what's before you tonight. It just has to get ironed out before the end of the project. And, the way I left it with Ethel when we last spoke was, when your council returns, to get them in touch with our council and see if something can be worked out. So something will be before the board at some point again on that matter. And what that is, it'll be determined by whatever discussion is had between town council and Ethel's council.
So, Mr. Chairman,
Mr. McInerney, please.
if, Paul, we never discussed this, but what if we just abandon the structure in place? Is that an option?
The majority of the structure is on Bill Peel's property, and I would, by the survey that VHB did, and looking at if you look at the plan and blow it up, the structure itself is 99.9% on Peel's property. But there's just the erosion and stuff that's on her property that we really need to address, and we really can't pull that out without getting on her property. It's not big, but there's a lot of rock in the 24-inch pipe. So, I mean, the ideal situation is to pull it out. I've been back and forth with Bill Peel, a couple emails, making him aware of the situation, what's going on. He just, keep me informed. Let me know when you're going to be here. So I'd like to get it out of there just because I don't want to, again, if they go someplace, the next people are going to ask us to do it. I just want to be nice to close everything out as fast as we can. But that doesn't impact anything on the road. It's all off the road. So if it takes 6 months to iron that out, it takes 6 months, but just would be nice to get it done.
Mr. Chair, just a follow-up with him. You say 99%, not to put too fine a point on it, but 2 feet, 6 feet of her property, what do you think the area disturbed is? Do you have that, or can we look at the plan just to give the board a inclination of spatial distances?
If you look at the plan, and if Becca can zoom in on it, where it says the TE is temporary easement, it's the VHB lingo similar to what we have on Main Street. It shows, temporary easement with 2 little squares, one in front of Peel's property and one in front of hers. It's minimal in front of Ethel's. It's, I don't know how many square feet, less than 500, less than probably 100. It's just wherever that little trench that's been eroded away, we need to fill that in, lumen seed that. So that whole little strip needs to be taken care of as well. But it's not a big temporary easement. It's very small. It's right at the shoulder of the road. It's not impacting any of her, landscape, really nicely landscaped yard. So it's, it'll just be grass, loom seed, and done. So
it's a betterment, would you say? It's obviously we're making it better.
Well, we're making it better. It'll look nicer without that thing sitting there. There's no doubt. So.
Okay. Thanks, Mr. Canoia. Anybody have any other questions? Okay. I'm not hearing anything. So what we have before us is we have a few motions to exercise the permanent easement at 38 Adams Road and 40 Adams Road. So we move on to a motion to proceed vote to execute the easements as outlined.
I move the board vote to execute the permanent easement at 38 Adams Road with Adams Street Number 8 LLC.
Second.
I have a motion made in second. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none. All those by roll call vote. Mr. Frisbee?
Frisbee, aye.
Mr. Often?
Often aye.
Ms. Roy?
Roy, aye.
Mr. Fazio?
DeFazio, aye.
And Peter Carlson's aye. Declare the motion carried 5-0. Next up, we have another motion to read into the record. Following
I
that.
move the board vote to execute the temporary easement at 38 Adams Road with Adams Street Number 8 LLC.
Second.
Motion made in second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those by roll call vote. Mr. Frisbee?
Frisbee, aye.
Thank you. Mr. Often?
Often aye.
Ms. Roy?
Roy, aye.
Mr. Fazio?
DeFazio, aye.
Peter Carlson's aye. Declare the motion carried 5-0. And one more motion, Colleen, if you may.
I move the board vote to execute the permanent easement at 40 Adams Road with Adams Street Number 7 LLC.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those by roll call vote. Mr. Frisbee?
Frisbee, aye.
Mr. Often?
Often aye.
Ms. Roy?
Roy, aye.
Mr. Fazio?
Fazio, aye.
Peter Carlson, aye. Declare the motion carried 5-0. The next part of our agenda here is to talk about that component that Mr. McInerney had discussed earlier about removing the affordable restriction at 44 Adams Road. Does anybody have any further questions on that or discussions before I entertain a motion? Mr. Prisby.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like it, but I'm pragmatic about it. We just deeded over, or about to deed over property of 25 Worcester to help solve affordable housing needs. We have 8 Pine coming up that hopefully will help solve affordable housing needs. I mean, well played by the owner, right? He's got an affordable restriction that comes with the development, a lot that's just sitting there, and now he gets to develop it at market rate and give us something that we need. So it's life.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, not hearing anything, Colleen, if you would, please.
I move the board vote to remove the affordable restriction at 44 Adams Road.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor by roll call vote. Mr. Prisby.
Frisbee, aye.
Mr. Often.
Often I.
Ms. Roy.
Roy, aye.
Ms. DeFazio.
DeFazio, aye.
And Peter Carlson's aye. Declare the motion carried 5-0. Thank you very much, everybody. Okay. Mr. McInerney, you'll have anything that I need to sign or any of the board members need to sign down at the office this week?
Couldn't find my button. Yeah, there are things to sign with respect to both of those votes.
Okay, great. Let us know when that's ready to come down and sign. Thank you. All right, next up, we have select board reports. Does any select board member have a report? Okay, moving on to TA reports. Mr. McInerney, give us an update.
Yeah, a couple things that Becca added to the agenda. You all know I was on vacation last week, so since she did all this background work, I would ask the board to allow her to make this part of the report.
Sure. Ms. Meekins, take it away.
Okay. Coronavirus municipal update. So case count, we're currently at 99 for the town of Grafton. We did have 1 new case today reported. The Grafton Strong account currently has $7,500 in it. We did receive an application today. I believe it's the first complete application we have. So Barbara Connolly in the senior center is working directly with that applicant to gather all the necessary documentation for that request. We did have a return to work committee meeting, an internal meeting today, just to touch base with a few department heads about how the appointment only policy is going with respect to allowing visitors in the building. It seems like things are going well. There hasn't been a request to expand the hours yet, and we haven't really been inundated with requests for appointments, which is good. I think it means that people are obviously respecting social distancing, and we're able to do the majority of what we need to do remotely and electronically, which obviously is helped greatly by having Viewpoint launch, at least partially, so that people have access online to apply for permits and contact staff members directly that way. The next step will probably be either an expansion of hours for appointment only and or starting to bring back all department heads and staff in a staggered shift. But we're kind of waiting to see what the next phase rollout is from the state with respect to capacity for office spaces. We're still at, no more than 10 people per 1,000 square feet, 50% capacity for office. So we do still have some state restrictions that we have to adhere to with respect to the number of employees that we have in the building at one time. Let's see, what else do we have? Recruitment and hiring. So we're currently accepting applications for the data collector position in the assessor's office. Upon the fire chief's recommendation, we're going to set up a couple of interviews with applicants for the fire inspector position. I think I mentioned last week that we had some new applications come in. The chief reviewed those. He's interested in a few of them. So we're going to hopefully set those up for the week of August 4th. And we're also going to re-advertise the position, probably with a salary range, to see if we can get more candidates, a bigger candidate pool than we did the first time around. The chief is interested in bringing on that person now, and would like them to give them the opportunity to train with Steve Cheris for a few months as he transitions out. So we'll be doing that, and we're hoping to have a recommendation to the select board for the accountant on August 4th. We have final interviews this week with a couple of candidates. So hopefully that will be before the board on the 4th. Upcoming contracts and agreements, we are planning to have the town planner come in if the board would like to give an update on the open space and rec plan. That is nearing completion, and it may be a good idea for the planner to come in and just let the board know sort of what's happened to date and what the final steps are that's needed from the board. The board will eventually be asked to ratify that plan. DPW and paving, I believe Andy Deshane is going to come in on August 4th to give an update on the DPW building project. The Grafton water, so we've been getting a lot of questions about Worcester Street paving. When's it gonna happen? There's still a big bump in the road. So we did get in touch with the Grafton Water District. They're receiving paving bids first week in August, and they're hoping to have all that work done by the 1st of November. So that'll be a mill and overlay. They're gonna fix the bump in the road. And they're planning to do final paving next summer. So the road will be smoothed out before the winter. That's good news. I'm gonna repeat that, and that's all I have.
Great. Thank you, Becca. Does anyone have any
Mr. Chair,
questions?
can I just add one thing? Regarding the
Yes,
Grafton
Mr.
Strong
Beckman, please.
account, Donna Stock's campaign group had some funds left over and she donated those funds to the Grafton Strong account. I got the check yesterday and I'd forgotten about it. So that's deposited, and I think it was for $504, give or take. So I just wanted to make mention of that and thank her for thinking of us for that account.
Thank you for sharing that with us. Does anyone have any questions or comments? All right, I just want to say thank you to Ms. Stock for the donation. They're very kind and generous. I know we've got our first applicant to come in to utilize those funds. I'm sure they'll be used well, and people of Grafton are going to be thankful for that. And it's much appreciated. On the topic of fire department, just the hiring, I think it might be worthwhile to maybe put, the board can discuss, a little bit more with the Q&A with the town administration on just, envisioning a new transition plan and having a discussion with utilizing Chief Gauthier for a bit more time that he's agreed to stay on board. And just as a follow-up to that, does anyone have anything else that they want to add? No. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. On the correspondence, Ms. Roy, we don't have any correspondence. I think we just read what we need to. Thank you. All right. So first up on the agenda today was goals update. So if you recall back a couple meetings ago, we wanted to bring this forward and have a discussion within the board about, basically, preparing with this new board, talk about some goals and come up with suggestions of having where and how to have it in a date and time. So I wanted to just hand this over to Ms. DeFazio and let her start off with this discussion, and then let's just open this up to the board and have a candid discussion about how to move forward.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So to the new members, you probably already know this, but I spearheaded this idea last year just because the town of Sutton has done it for 13 or so years. And it seemed to be a good way for the board to come together and, collaborate goals, sort of, row in the same direction for a couple of priorities. And so last August was the first time that this select board got together and held a goals meeting. And so I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think we had decided that August 11th was going to be the date of the goals meeting. But if we did not confirm that, we should do that tonight. We should put down a date in August. So two things I wanted to bring up with the board tonight. One is we held it down last year in the community house in South Grafton, which seemed to work out well. We have an option of doing a more casual venue. Obviously, with COVID concerns, I want to ask the board if they wanted to do a virtual goals meeting or an outside venue, and I would coordinate with staff and try to find a couple of different, logistical ways to do this and report back to the board, and we can decide. So that's number one. And then the second thing is I wanted to know sort of what the board envisioned our goals meeting looking like this year. So last year, we all got around and we all put our goals together, which was a great idea. And we all voted on them, and we probably had about 30. And unfortunately, there wasn't a lot. I think we accomplished some things, but there wasn't a heck of a lot of follow-up. So one of the thoughts I had was maybe this year just saying we work on 5 goals or 10 goals, and we come to an agreement on what our priorities are, and then we're able to track them and determine how, even if the timeline is maybe even past our time on the board, right? That we have a common vision. So that was my thought. And I'm just, looking for some feedback so we can kind of set this up and be prepared for this meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Fazio. Does anyone have any questions, comments about how to move forward? Ms. Roy?
I like the idea of meeting in person outside if it's safe to do so. And I would like to see if we could get a printout of all the goals mentioned from last year so that we can see what was accomplished and maybe just check off instead of adding too much more, just trying to nail down what we've already set for ourselves.
Okay. We'll get that list to the whole board. I think between Becca and myself, we compile a list and she shared it with the board. I can see if I can find that email from that meeting, and I'll share it with the board. And obviously we'll have it ready for the meeting on August 11th to go over that. Does that work for everybody? Okay, great. Anyone else have any questions or comments? Mr. Brisby.
Yeah, I think to sort of second what Doreen had said, I agree that maybe keeping it to our top goals for the year, talking about those, and then determining what the timeline would be for putting those into place, establishing establishing that timeline and working backward from, say, a town meeting to, okay, here are the points at which we need to show a deliverable, and this is how long it's going to take us to talk about those, so that we know in advance more or less when we're going to be meeting between now and next May. So we can really set out what should be on an agenda when, and really keep track of things that way, just to keep ourselves disciplined. Because as I know from being on this board for a couple of years now, I'm actually the senior person on this board, which is insane. That, November comes after October town meeting, then the holidays come, and then you get to ramp back up in January. There's some time that gets lost when you sort of lose focus of the big picture. So I think this meeting can help us not do that.
Thank you. Anybody else? Mr. Often.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree with the in-person outdoor option. If that's a possibility, I think that would be really nice to actually be in the same kind of space together as a new board. I agree with the kind of intense focus that it sounds like the board is after for this year. That makes a lot of sense to me, rather than having so many goals. Let's figure out, what we're going to do within this 1-year time frame. But I also do want to, I guess, plant some seeds around. We should have some aspirational goals as well, some longer term things that we can work towards this year, but maybe don't happen this year. But things that we want to. Some of these things, they take time to steer the ship, And that may be 2 or 3 years to actually kind of get to some of those more aspirational things. But I'd like to consider both of those things in the scope of our meeting.
Okay. Mr. Fazio.
I just want to say thank you, everybody, for your feedback. And can we just confirm that August 11th is the date we intended on doing this? Or if we want to choose another date, that's fine too. And I will report back to the board at the next meeting of venue ideas.
Okay. August 11th is good for me. Does anyone else have any other? Okay, looking, I'm not seeing any objections here. Okay. All right, anything else on that? I just want to say, Mr. Fazio, I agree. You know, we had quite a bit from last year, paring it down to maybe just 1 or 2 per person, or like you said, we agree. So I'm looking forward to that discussion on the 11th as well. Thank you. Thanks for giving us that update. Okay. Moving on, creation local tax relief program committee. So this was asked to be put on as a discussion item to discuss and review a charge that Mr. Prisby had put together for the board to consider at a future meeting. Mr. Prisby, if you want to go ahead and.
So the reason that I had wanted this to be put on was because I do think that we need to check in with the folks that are going to be responsible for this charge. And I was kind of hoping that we could have them come into the meeting. Let me get back into my. So we've got, I think, the chair of the Board of Assessors and a couple other people. So the thing that I could speak best to right now would be what Chapter 60, Section 3D is, which basically is a place on your municipal tax bill or motor vehicle excise bill where you can check off to make a donation. That donation would be placed into a separate account. We put together a committee of people to distribute that money based on whatever criteria they come up with, presumably need. Now, are a lot of people going to check off on their tax bill and their motor vehicle excise bill a donation? I don't know, but these are the options that the state leaves us with. They, you know, any sort of tax relief program that we want to institute has to be authorized by Beacon Hill. We can't just make up our own. So that's what this is about. It's about exploring that option. But we really do need to talk to the people who are going to be on this committee to make sure that this is something that they can take on. I don't feel comfortable just telling them, oh, hey, by the way, this is part of your new charge. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So can we get them to come in to the next meeting by Zoom?
I can ask, see who's available. So we're looking to have the chair of the Board of Assessors, the town treasurer, but that's the only other membership really.
That's right.
Themselves. So it'd just be those two.
That'd be those two.
Okay. I mean, would you want all of the Board of Assessors to be part of that discussion?
No, I think just a chair.
Okay. So I'll reach out to each one of them and see about their availability for our next meeting. Does that work?
That works.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions? I mean, we've seen this charge. It's been in our packet now that Mr. Prisby has put up. Is there any questions that the board has before we get to that next meeting that you want to bring up right now? Mr. Austin.
Yeah, just quickly, Ed, is there a good example of this in surrounding towns?
Milford.
Milford. Okay, I'll
Yep.
check it out. Thank you.
Great to know. Any other questions?
Didn't Mendon do this too?
Mendon, wrong M. Sorry, Mendon.
All
At least
right.
I didn't go with Millbury.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? Okay. So on my takeaways, I'll reach out to the chair of the Board of Assessors and the town treasurer to see if they can come to our next meeting and talk about this some more. If anyone else has any comments or questions on this charge based on Mr. Prisby's commentary tonight, bring them up at the next meeting, obviously. All right. Next up, we have meeting minutes to approve for July 14, 2020.
I move the board vote to approve the meeting minutes from July 14th, 2020 as written.
Second.
I have a motion made in seconds. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those by roll call vote, Mr. Frisbee,
Frisbee, aye.
Mr. Austin,
Out and I.
Ms. Roy,
Roy, I.
Mr. Fazio,
Fazio, I.
Peter Carlson, aye. Thank you. Okay. We don't have any reason to go into executive session after this meeting here. So at this point, we've concluded, we're done. I can entertain a motion to adjourn.
I motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion made, seconded. All those in favor by roll call vote, Mr. Frisbee,
Frisbee, aye.
Mr. Austin,
Out and I.
Ms. Roy,
Roy, I.
Mr. Fazio,
Fazio, I.
Mr. Carlson, aye. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a great night.